A family without blood ties isn't a real family. Mom, how could you say that? Apologize. Talking back to your mom. Mindy, you've corrupted Martin. Break up with him now. Just married, I was troubled by my mother-in-law. Not only did she dislike me, but she also despised my relationship with my non-biological mom, always saying hurtful things. My name is Mindy, 28 years old. I married Martin, who is 2 years older, 6 months ago. We lived separately from our in-laws and aimed to buy our own home, both of us working and sharing household chores. Martin is helpful around the house and very kind, even cooking when I'm busy with work. I felt happy with our peaceful life together. My family situation is a bit complex. I have no blood relation with my mom. In other words, she's my stepmother. My parents divorced when I was 6, and my biological mother left. I have no fond memories of my biological mother. All I remember is her flashy makeup and her figure leaving at night. On nights she was home, she would argue with Dad, angrily throwing and breaking things, and those hateful eyes when she looked at me. Those eyes are unforgettable. That was my memory of my biological mother. Dad was busy with work, but tried to spend time with me, with the help of his sister, my Aunt Serena. But the absence of my biological mother weighed heavily on my young mind, and I often had nightmares and cried at night. I felt lonely without a mother, but with the help of Dad, Serena, and a counselor, I gradually regained my brightness and made friends in elementary school. About 2 years later, Dad remarried. Florence, a modestly dressed woman of 35 like Dad at the time, had a smile that lit up the room. "Nice to meet you," she said with a smile that seemed to instantly brighten the room. I still remember that radiant smile vividly to this day. Dad and Florence met me through an acquaintance. Serena, worried about Dad taking care of me while dealing with his wife's betrayal, arranged a dinner party. Dad was initially reluctant but agreed to meet, out of gratitude and Serena's persistence. Florence was also hesitant about the sudden introduction, especially with a man who had a child. However, Florence and Dad felt an instant connection and were drawn to each other as they spent more time together. Considering Dad's remarriage, Florence's first marriage, and my trauma from my biological mother, they took their time before deciding to marry. Even though they took their time, I couldn't immediately accept Florence as a mom, and there were months of confusion. But there were no worries like you see on TV about stepmothers mistreating stepchildren. Surprisingly, Florence fit right in with Dad's relatives, and Dad smiled more often. The meals were always delicious and warm. Above all, she was kind to me. Gradually, my heart warmed up, and at some point, I can't quite recall, I naturally started calling her Mom. Though occasionally people would look at us differently, knowing she was my stepmother, Mom's cheerful and vibrant personality, along with her active participation in school and community events, eventually silenced any whispers. Our family was truly happy. I then graduated high school, went to college, and successfully landed a job. In my 4th year of working, I met my future husband, Martin. A year ago, after dating for about 4 years, Martin proposed to me. I had told Martin about Mom and my biological mother when we started considering marriage. So when he seriously considered marrying me, I was overjoyed and accepted without hesitation. When we went to a family meeting, my future father-in-law warmly welcomed me. However, my future mother-in-law was different. Upon hearing about my family background, she sighed deeply and said, "Your parents are divorced, huh? And remarried while you were still young?" "Hey, cut it out." Father-in-law tried to stop her, but mother-in-law continued. "I mean, growing up in such an environment. In our family line, divorced and remarried couples are..." I wanted to respond, but I was intimidated by mother-in-law's domineering tone and attitude. I could only hang my head in silence. Martin held my hand and said calmly, "Mom, don't be rude. I'm marrying Mindy." After a brief pause, mother-in-law coldly said, "Well, think it over," ending the conversation for the day. Martin, who had been bothered by mother-in-law's interference since childhood, said he had anticipated her attitude when introducing me. "I will bring my son's marriage partner," mother-in-law had declared. Ignoring mother-in-law's bluster, Martin chose me. While I was worried about mother-in-law, I loved Martin, and hoping she would understand one day, I decided to get married. Mother-in-law seemed to assume that we would naturally live with them, and that I would become a homemaker, devoted to serving the in-laws, but Martin, fed up with mother-in-law's meddling, firmly refused. We rented a convenient place for commuting and both worked. Father-in-law didn't say anything about our decision. However, mother-in-law, apparently very displeased, would call my mobile phone, not my husband's, every 3 days. She'd call around noon, likely targeting my lunchtime. The calls would always start with, "It's only natural to live together, don't you even know that?" and progress to, "It's absurd for a daughter-in-law to work. Don't neglect your household duties. A daughter-in-law who doesn't respect her husband is a failure." And, "Become a homemaker quickly and think about having grandchildren." Without even acknowledging my responses, she just kept talking and abruptly hung up the phone. That had become the usual routine. She never forgot her catchphrase, "You've led my son astray." Lately, phone calls weren't enough, and she would visit our house without an appointment. On my days off during the week, she'd wake me up early with the doorbell, and in addition to her usual nagging, she would check every corner of our house and complain about the housework. Since childhood, I have been unable to express my emotions well, and tend to shrink and become frightened in front of assertive people, becoming quieter the more I am spoken to. I knew that this would only further irritate and embolden the other party, but I felt helpless to change it. If it was just complaints or sarcastic comments about household chores or being a daughter-in-law, I could somehow tune them out. However, mother-in-law would occasionally make remarks touching upon my own mom. One day, while watching a diaper commercial on TV that showed a baby being held by its mother, my mother-in-law would say things like, "Blood ties are really important, aren't they?" Or, "If you haven't given birth to a child yourself, you can't really feel love for it," in a tone that was different from her usual sarcasm. "That's not true. There's nothing to be ashamed of in my family. What does blood relation even mean? Please stop making such assumptions." Every time my family was mentioned, I would scream these thoughts in my head, but whenever I saw my mother-in-law's eyes, my body would freeze and I would fall silent. Gradually, my mother-in-law started making sarcastic remarks even in front of Martin. Each time, Martin would firmly respond to his mother, but the more he defended me, the more his mother escalated. I didn't want to cause trouble for Martin, who was desperately trying to protect me. I didn't want to lose such a kind person. Even though she was tough on me, she's the only mom Martin has, so I shouldn't let our relationship get strained because of me. All I have to do is endure it. That's what I kept telling myself. At times like that, I desperately wanted to hear my mom's voice and would reach for my phone, but remembering the smiles of my parents, who truly blessed my marriage, I couldn't bring myself to press the call button. While being troubled by such issues with my mother-in-law, one evening, half a year into my marriage, I got a call from Dad. He informed me that Mom was in critical condition due to an accident. He said he would explain more when I arrived, but I panicked and rushed to the hospital after quickly explaining the situation to my office. The hospital near my parents' home was about 2 hours away, and I was worried sick the entire time. I hadn't seen my parents since the wedding. I had been preoccupied with my job, my life with Martin, and the harassment from my mother-in-law, except for when I was in the train or taxi. I ran without caring about my surroundings, but I didn't make it in time. My dad must have rushed from his workplace too. His suit was wrinkled, and Serena was wearing sandals, the kind she wore when going to the nearby supermarket. It seemed that my mom had fallen down the stairs at a local shopping mall while trying to help a little girl who was about to fall. The girl was safe thanks to my mom holding her tightly. My mom was still breathing, but had passed away shortly before I arrived. Although my mom had broken several bones, her face remained untouched. After a while, Martin arrived to support me, gently holding my shoulder. The hospital was bustling with police, the girl who was saved, and her parents, but I just watched them as if it was happening to someone else. Returning to the hospital room and holding my mom's hand, I remembered my mom, who used to say, "Make sure you don't accidentally eat my arm," while holding a boneless ham and laughing heartily. It was unbelievable. She's just sleeping. She'll surely wake up tomorrow. But my mom didn't wake up. Mom. Mom. No matter how many times I called, my mom didn't respond. In front of my eyes, my motionless mom lay, but I couldn't come to terms with this reality. Due to the funeral and matters related to the accident, I decided to use my accumulated paid leave and stay at my childhood home. I was worried about Dad, so when I told Martin about it, he understood and agreed it was necessary. However, Mother-in-law didn't feel the same way. While at my parents' house, she called just once. "Let me know the date and time of the funeral. I can't make plans otherwise." She spoke in a detached tone. Her words weighed heavily on me. Still unable to accept Mom's death, and unable to converse, I simply said, "I'll let Martin know." "Oh, okay." And with that, the call ended. With Grandma and Serena's help, we were busy preparing for the funeral. We decided to have a small family funeral. But on the night of the wake, many neighbors who had heard of Mom's passing came to pay their respects. They likely worried for Dad and me, bringing us food and sweets. The girl Mom had saved and her parents also came. Her parents bowed their heads to us repeatedly. The girl was crying so hard she could hardly speak, repeating, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Her cries echoed through the room, and all the neighbors, who were trying to be cheerful and considerate, began to cry too. While I still couldn't accept Mom's untimely death, seeing the girl, I couldn't find it in me to blame her. Rather, I quietly thought it was good she was safe. After the neighbors left, the living room fell silent. I sat blankly beside my sleeping Mom, when Serena sat next to me, took my hand, and began to speak. "Florence couldn't have children." Caught off guard, I turned to Serena. She continued, "It seems it was due to her constitution. She was once left by her fiancé because of it, and had given up on marriage. She laughed it off, saying she loved her job, but I think it was hard for her. She was always saying how happy she was to have you as a daughter. When you first called her Mom, she called me, crying tears of joy." Serena said this with a smile, but tears welled in her eyes. "Mom." I buried my face in Serena's chest and cried out loud. The next morning, Martin, father-in-law, and mother-in-law arrived at my childhood home. Seeing my tear-streaked face, Martin embraced my shoulders. In front of father-in-law and Martin, mother-in-law, like father-in-law, offered condolences and words of comfort to Dad and me, though she seemed displeased. Even after we arrived at the crematorium, a staff member kindly guided me, feeling a little unsteady, to the family waiting room, suggesting I take a break. I wanted some alone time and headed to the hallway. I heard voices from the cool depths of the hallway. It seemed Mother-in-law was on the phone with someone. I inadvertently stopped and held my breath. "Yes, it finally just ended. It was really long." I didn't know who she was talking to, but I understood she was talking about Mom's funeral. "Attending the funeral at daughter-in-law's house is just tiresome, and it's far, too. Maybe we should take advantage of this and go to a hot spring on the way back." In a flirty tone I had never heard before, Mother-in-law continues talking, oblivious to my presence. Mother-in-law keeps going. "Finally, the nuisance is gone, so Martin will probably come back. Well, I don't need a stupid daughter-in-law raised by a stepmother, but I want to be freed from chores and taking care of Stanley, too. Just think of it as hiring a useless housekeeper." Mother-in-law, not realizing that I'm listening, continues to talk cheerfully. "Oh, the stepmother's insurance money will come in, right? That'll make things easier. Even the foolish mother-daughter duo can be of some use." Then she let out, "So boring. They should just hurry up and burn it." And laughed. At that moment, something snapped inside me. I approached Mother-in-law and stood behind her. Mother-in-law was surprised and flustered, but I grabbed her cell phone and dragged her to the lobby. When we got to where the relatives were, mother-in-law shook off my hand and shouted, "What are you doing?" Everyone around us was surprised, but I didn't notice. "You can make fun of me all you want, but I won't allow any insults to Mom. Mom was a much better mother than you ever were." Mother-in-law was momentarily taken aback by my strong words, but quickly recovered and loudly retorted, "What are you saying? A stepmother is bound to be a worthless woman. Such a poorly raised woman is not suitable for our family, and I hate your insecure face and attitude." Angry and trembling, I stared into mother-in-law's eyes and suddenly remembered my biological mother. The reason I continued to fear mother-in-law was because her disdainful eyes were just like my biological mother's. My trauma resurfaced for a moment, but my hatred towards mother-in-law and anger at her abusive words were stronger, and I couldn't hold back. "Rosalie, what did you just say? You said to hurry up and burn it, right?" With tears streaming down my face, I stared intently into mother-in-law's eyes. Mother-in-law, mocking me, said, "I said it, so what? Stop crying over a stepmother and just hurry up and burn it." And laughed derisively. At those words, my anger peaked, and before I knew it, I had grabbed mother-in-law's chest and slapped her hard. Mom was always kind. When I came home from school, she would greet me with a smile saying, "Welcome back." She helped me with my homework. If I was watching TV instead of doing my homework, she would turn off the TV, take out my homework from my school bag, and sit right next to me. Sometimes it felt annoying, but when I solved a difficult math problem, she would gently pat my head. When I was crying, she would stop her chores, take me on her lap, and hug me gently. Sometimes she scolded me, and we had many fights during my adolescence. I could always be honest with Mom. When I got married, she was the happiest and cried more than Dad. She never spoke ill of others or complained. The neighbors were kind to us because of Mom's personality and efforts. I was able to become independent as a working adult, and Dad could smile and stay healthy because Mom was there. I will never allow anyone to insult such a wonderful mom. As mother-in-law dramatically collapsed, and I was about to grab her again, Dad restrained me from behind, and I came back to my senses as if waking up. Mother-in-law rushed to father-in-law crying, "Mindy hit me, help!" She clung to father-in-law. However, father-in-law calmly forced mother-in-law to her knees, knelt beside her, and pressed her head to the floor in a gesture of apology. "Mindy, Stephen, and all our family members, I apologize for my wife's disrespectful behavior." Everyone was stunned by father-in-law's sudden act of contrition, but mother-in-law broke free and began to rant. "Stanley, it's Mindy's fault, right? You saw what she did. She's not fit for our family. Divorce her. Divorce." To this, father-in-law responded in a calm but firm voice. "We are the ones getting divorced." The room fell even more silent at these words. "What? Why? She hit me. I'm not the criminal. Are you siding with this foolish woman instead of your son?" Father-in-law, still calm, said, "It's over," and turned to me. "Mindy, I'm sorry. I knew about my wife's behavior and couldn't stop her. The verbal abuse she hurled at you is unforgivable, and I'm equally guilty for not doing anything. I'm truly sorry." He bowed deeply again. "What are you talking about? I did nothing wrong, right, Martin?" Mother-in-law tried to cozy up to Martin, but he coldly shifted away and walked over to father-in-law, presenting his cell phone. It was mother-in-law's phone that I had confiscated. Father-in-law stared at the phone for a moment and then said, "Let's discuss this when we get home." After bowing to us again, he led mother-in-law out of the crematorium, almost dragging her. The moment they left, I collapsed to the floor, drained of energy. I was about to apologize for slapping Martin's mom in front of everyone, even after the horrible things she said, when Martin embraced me first, saying, "I'm sorry for not protecting you until now." And with that, he gave me a hug. Serena told me, "You did great," and affectionately ruffled my hair. What was supposed to be a small family funeral had turned into a huge confrontation. Months later, father-in-law and mother-in-law did indeed get divorced. It turned out that mother-in-law had been having an affair. The person she was talking to in the crematorium hallway was her lover. Father-in-law had suspected mother-in-law's increased spending and outings and had hired a private investigator. He had consulted Martin secretly, who was still skeptical and wanted to believe in mother-in-law. But that day, when he saw the screen of the cell phone I had taken from mother-in-law, he realized father-in-law was right. He quickly arranged a lawyer, presented the evidence to mother-in-law, and announced the divorce. Mother-in-law opposed vehemently and tearfully apologized to father-in-law, but father-in-law said, "I won't demand alimony from you, a homemaker. Consider it a severance payment. If you don't like it, sue me for compensation." Reluctantly, mother-in-law agreed to the divorce. Father-in-law didn't demand any compensation, but it turns out the affair partner also had a spouse, who apparently did insist on being compensated. Mother-in-law, who never worked, has no means to pay. She has no choice but to take up part-time jobs and pay back little by little. She brought it upon herself. Mother-in-law called Martin several times, asking him to mediate a reconciliation, but Martin firmly refused. I received a call saying, "It's all your fault. I lost everything. You're a devil. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I'll sue you. If you don't want that, pay me compensation." The old me would have just cowered in silence, but not anymore. "I'm recording this conversation. Is it okay if I report this extortion to the police?" I said, and she hung up. After that, I received no more calls. Truthfully, I wasn't recording anything. After the phone harassment stopped, she attacked our house once. After incessantly ringing the doorbell, she prostrated herself at the front door for a long time. "I'm sorry. Martin is misunderstanding. Apologize to Stanley for me," she shouted through the intercom. "If I have to, I'll call the police," I warned. Dejected, she left. Although it wasn't the sole reason, we moved right after mother-in-law's attack. Martin was transferred, so I quit my job to go with him. We changed our phone numbers at the same time. Of course, we haven't told mother-in-law our new address or phone number. We've told father-in-law and dad, and we're discussing having a meal at our new place once we're settled. According to the neighbors we were close to before moving, mother-in-law was seen lingering in front of our empty apartment and was reported by the next-door neighbor and taken away by the police. We have no idea what happened to mother-in-law after that. I was worried about Dad, but he said, "If I stay depressed, I'll be laughed at by Florence. Thanks to Florence, our family was happy. I have to carry on Florence's strength to repay her," and sent us off with a smile. I feel the same way. I can't stay scared and sad forever. I can't waste the love Mom gave me and Dad, supporting us even in hard times. I was raised by such a wonderful mom. From the bottom of my heart, I want to protect the ones I love with a bright smile, just like Mom did for me.
I'm Karen. I'm 33 years old. We're a family of 3, my husband William, who's the same age, and our 3-year-old daughter, Evelyn. My husband's family runs a tutoring center. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law used to be teachers, and my husband also has a teaching license. They are affluent and well-educated, and I sometimes find it hard to believe that I'm part of such a family. At first, my parents and friends were worried about me, but there was nothing to worry about. They're really good people. Even though I was the athlete type in contrast, my in-laws welcomed me with open arms. My mother-in-law was thrilled to have a daughter. Although I was nervous at first, my strength lies in my cheerful and lively character. I decided to be myself, and we built a relationship from there. I hold a certified arborist certification, and I do health assessments on trees, pruning, planting, and relocation, as well as consulting. I studied hard to get my certification, and even after getting out into the field, it's a physically demanding job. Not only do you need brains, but it's a job that really requires physical work. I always take care of my health, and I'm quite strong for a woman. Right now, my husband is a tutor in the family-run tutoring center, but he used to be an elementary school teacher. The first time I met him was when I visited the school he worked at for a meeting about the health and care of the trees. After giving birth, I took parental leave and just returned to work last year. Since our daughter is still young, I prioritize my family thanks to the understanding of my workplace. But there are times when I just can't make it in time to pick her up. When that happens, my mother-in-law helps out, and my husband will pick up our daughter if he can. I appreciated the support from my work, and I was living a fulfilling life. However, there was one person in my married life who troubled me. It was my sister-in-law. She's the wife of my husband's brother. My husband has 2 brothers, and my husband is the second oldest. The youngest son is still single. The eldest son, Richard's wife, is Sarah, and she's the source of my problems. She's basically a housewife, but she also helps with the accounting and administrative work of the tutoring center. They have a 5-year-old boy, and they seem to be planning to have him take an entrance exam for a private elementary school. From the first time I met Sarah at the in-laws' house, I knew she was a different kind of person. She was petite, always well-dressed, and her hair was neat, and I thought she was wonderful when I saw her smiling. But she had 2 faces. It was when we were in the kitchen helping my mother-in-law, and she left for a moment. "Hey, can't you do something about your appearance?" Huh? Sarah, who had been smiling, had a voice that was so different. I thought she was a different person. "You're always wearing clothes that look worn out and dirty. Don't you realize you're the only one who sticks out here?" I'm embarrassed. Well, I find these clothes easy to move in, and I have to chase after my daughter all the time because she's still little." "I have a child too, you know." Sarah sighed dramatically and seemed to have more to say, but she returned to her usual demeanor when she saw my mother-in-law returning. "Oh, what were you 2 talking about?" "Oh, we were just talking about child-rearing." It's amazing how she can change her voice in an instant. I wonder if she has a sensor that automatically switches when my mother-in-law comes. My mother-in-law looked at me as if to say, "Is that so?" "Yes, we were talking about our kids." Upon hearing this, Sarah seemed satisfied. I'm not afraid of skinny Sarah, but it's not like I can't shrug off this level of sarcasm, and I didn't want to worry my mother-in-law unnecessarily. I've got a few friends dealing with issues with their mother-in-laws and sister-in-laws. It's not unusual, after all, to hear about stress due to the mother-in-law factor. Given this context, my mother-in-law is like a saint, always rooting and supporting my career. I thought I could deflect my sister-in-law's snide comments easily. However, every time we crossed paths, she would continue to demean me. Once, while on a work errand, I bumped into my sister-in-law, Sarah, who was chatting with a couple of her mom friends. We locked eyes, and not wanting to be rude, I greeted her. "Hello, Sarah." "Oh, hi there." I was in a rush and moved on after the brief exchange, but later that night she called my home. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" She snapped at me, her tone extremely aggressive from the get-go. "Huh? What do you mean?" "Earlier today, don't you dare approach me in public dressed like that. What's with your work outfit? I can't believe you would walk around outside looking like that. Did you see us? It's only proper to look presentable, even if you have nothing special going on. We're all mom friends who are preparing our kids for private school entrance exams. We live in a different world from you." Oh, I was so embarrassed. She launched into a tirade without pause. "Well, I was working, so I was indeed in my work clothes," I replied. "I don't care about that. Just don't approach me anymore when we meet outside, okay? It's embarrassing." "But isn't that even stranger? We're family, after all." "That's what I've been trying to tell you, haven't I? You're just not fitting for the family. Just so you know, I've never considered you a sister-in-law." She hung up abruptly, leaving me stunned. She really went out of her way to call and vent her feelings. Although she consistently complained about me at family gatherings, what's worse is that she only reveals her true colors when we're alone. She prides herself in being a fashionable, high-class woman from a wealthy family. It's fine if she enjoys that. What I don't understand is her constant need to attack me, simply because I don't align with her preferences. Yes, she always dresses elegantly in sports accessories, but why does she need so many? I wonder if her quiet husband, my brother-in-law, lets her shop as much as she wants. He probably doesn't even know about this side of her. It's just who she is. I've kept silent about this to my brother-in-law and mother-in-law, but I did let my husband in on it, as it was becoming a source of stress. Huh? She doesn't seem like that. He initially shrugged it off. A few days later, my mother-in-law called me. There was a family dinner coming up over the weekend, and she wanted to let me know the time and place. We each live about 30 minutes away by car. Normally, she doesn't interfere with her son's household. However, she insists on gathering the entire family for my father-in-law's birthday, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. This time, it was because my father-in-law's birthday was approaching. This time, we managed to reserve a private room at his favorite steakhouse. It's our first time going there as a family, but it's really good. I hope you're looking forward to it. Oh, I am, thank you. While I was genuinely excited, I dreaded seeing my sister-in-law again. You don't sound very enthusiastic. Are you busy at work? Oh, I'm okay. I'm perfectly fine. Uh-oh, had my voice betrayed my feelings? I hurriedly reassured her. Karen, if there's anything bothering you at home, please let me know, okay? Our home? We're managing just fine, even when work runs late. You help us out. I really appreciate all you do for us. It's not about your family, though. Huh? I was puzzled, not understanding what she meant. Then the weekend came, and with it, the dinner party. It was my father-in-law's birthday celebration, a chance to express our gratitude for my father-in-law and mother-in-law. I resolved to celebrate wholeheartedly, and not to let my spiteful sister-in-law get to me. I left home early, and when I walked into the private room at the restaurant, I sighed with relief as my father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and sister-in-law had not yet arrived. I'd come early as to not keep my father-in-law waiting on his birthday celebration, and also because the less time I spent with Sarah, the better. However, my brother-in-law and Sarah showed up right after I did. Hello. Hi, Karen. Richard, it's nice to see you. After we exchanged greetings, my husband and brother-in-law started talking. Sarah, on the other hand, swiftly came over to me and looked me up and down before sighing. What are you wearing? For such an upscale restaurant, you could at least dress a bit nicer. How many times do I have to tell you? The demeaning comments started as usual, only in a lower tone. Is this really the time or place for that? I clenched my teeth and forced a smile. I chose this dress thinking about the occasion. Is it inappropriate? I mean, it's not from a high-end brand or anything. It's quite surprising you could show up in such a cheap outfit. You, despite being a woman, have such broad shoulders that the dress doesn't suit you. And your accessories? Just a wedding ring? You never wear nail polish either, and your hands look rough. I can't wear nail polish for my job. Isn't it inconvenient to do household chores with such long nails, Sarah? My job involves working with wood and soil in addition to household chores, so my hands tend to get rough. Not being able to wear nail polish was not something I was concerned about. Compared to the average woman, my masculinity is a testament to my hard work as a gardener. These hands, these shoulders, they are my pride, yet she belittles them and I couldn't help but retort. What did you say? Are you suggesting that I don't do housework? Perhaps my rebuttal did sit well with her. Sarah's voice grew louder. I really can't stand you. I've been trying to help you out of kindness, but you never listen, and now you're resisting? It's unbearable to be lumped in with a rough woman like you. I messed up. My sister-in-law seemed to be losing sight of her surroundings in her anger. This is my father-in-law's celebration today. Please don't bother me. Huh? You're the one ruining everything. You're the one who doesn't belong in this family. I told you, I can't dine with someone as shabby as you. Go home. Wait, what? I have to go home? This dinner was organized by my mother-in-law, and the person ruining it is clearly her. I'll listen to your complaints about me later. I have things to say to you as well, but for now... I had decided to stand my ground, but not now. Don't you dare talk back to me. Didn't you hear me? I said go home. In fact, leave this family. Just as my husband started to approach in response to Sarah's loud voice, the private room's door opened. The one leaving should be you. My mother-in-law entered the room, quietly yet decisively. My father-in-law and their youngest son, John, also entered, and my mother-in-law gently closed the door. What? Sarah, who was fired up, must have remembered where she was and what was happening. She was lost for words, her mouth opening and closing in surprise. What was that about? Everyone, please sit down. Despite her soft voice, there was a compelling force in my mother-in-law that everyone obeyed. It seems we need to have a chat before we can enjoy the birthday celebration. I'm sorry for this interruption. Seeing my father-in-law nod in agreement, my mother-in-law turned back to Sarah. Sarah, what did you say to Karen? Whoa, even my kind-hearted mother-in-law could dish out a strong sarcasm when needed. Sarah, flustered, answered, Oh, just saying I'm looking forward to today's meal. Did I hear wrong? I thought I heard get out. Huh? No, that was a small argument. It was just a joke. She was still somewhat agitated, but I was impressed at how Sarah was trying to regain her usual cheerful demeanor. An argument? What caused it? It seemed you were the one doing all the talking. Have you been bullying Karen like this whole time? She probably heard everything from the door, staring straight at Sarah. I didn't bully her. I was just offering advice on manners and dress as a senior member of this household. That didn't seem like advice, and everyone should be free to wear what they want as long as it's respectful. She wasn't dressed oddly. But wearing non-branded clothes in such a high-end restaurant, her makeup and accessories were minimal. I thought she shouldn't embarrass you and the rest. Enough! My mother-in-law's outburst made me jump, along with Sarah. The three brothers and my father-in-law knew that my mother-in-law was scary when angry. They seemed unfazed by the situation, showing picture books and speaking to the children to distract them. No. Sarah, you're the one who should be embarrassed. I had noticed that something was off about you two, even during gatherings at our house. I initially thought you were having friendly chats. Huh? Friendly? Yes, friendly chats, right? Sarah gave me a desperate look that was completely different from before, but I avoided meeting her gaze. For the record, Karen never snitched on you. You wasted her kindness, hoping you would eventually change. Your attitude only escalated. Well, that's... Stammering, Sarah was met with my mother-in-law's even harsher tone. And you always wear beautiful clothes and have so many purses. Yes, that's true. I always make sure to look presentable wherever I go. Where does the money for that come from? Huh? Just as she thought she could regain the upper hand, an unexpected question made Sarah freeze. That is, of course, from my... We're paying you for helping with the tuition and accounting at the tutoring school. Even if my son said you could use that money freely, it doesn't seem like it would be enough. Your clothes and purses are all designer brands. Well, because... Are you exploiting the fact that you're in charge of the household finances to satisfy your own desires? What do you mean? She stammered. I could see why she's confused. I was curious about the source of their money myself. I had always thought my brother-in-law was just a generous guy. Maybe he just left all the household finances to her. It's concerning to me that he didn't keep a closer eye on their spending. Maybe he trusted her because she acted as a good wife so well. When I think about it like that, I almost feel sorry for him. So, you've been spending money like water, and now you want to send your child to a private school? She asked. You've been settling aside funds for their education, right? What? You're not expecting us to pay, are you? No, not at all, but he's your adorable grandchild after all. Which is it? So she was planning to rely on my father-in-law and mother-in-law's money all along. Of course we love our grandchildren. We're thinking of supporting them financially if necessary, says my mother-in-law. Really? But only after you leave our home. What? No, there's no need for that. I'll apologize to Karen for telling her to leave. Karen? It's the first time she's referred to me by name. You will forgive me, right? We're sisters after all. Sisters? Only while you're married to my brother-in-law. My mother-in-law looks at me as if to sign that I should continue. Even if it's official, I don't want to become family. I don't think of you as a sister. Caught off guard, Sarah let out a weird noise. And that's not all. You've also been dipping into the money from the tutoring school. Sarah was speechless, her eyes wide in shock. Is that true? I was genuinely surprised by my mother-in-law's words. I had expected Sarah to use the household money freely, but I didn't think she would touch the funds from the tutoring school my in-laws run. You were clever enough to not get caught, so it took us a while to figure it out. Even Bob, who's been in charge of our accounts for years, was manipulated by you. Sarah's face turned pale. You were buying gifts like gift baskets for the suppliers of our teaching materials, expressing gratitude to teachers holding seminars, all this shopping under your charge. The amount on the receipts gradually increased. You made excuses that you were asked to give birthday presents, or that the requests came from me or my son. No, that's not. What are you talking about? You bought things other than gift baskets, labeling them as presents. This has never happened before. But it's our son's wife. Bob trusted you. He was told you took part-time lecturers to lunch, but in reality, you were dining and drinking tea with your mom friends. The suspicious receipts gradually increased, and Bob finally came to us. Even before that, my son had started investigating after noticing something strange. What? You betrayed the trust of all those who wanted to believe in you. It seems that dressing up is more important to you than anything else. It's not me, I didn't. Sarah looked at my brother-in-law as if begging for help, with a voice that's almost a whisper. But he just stared back coldly without saying a word. And if all this is true, I can't blame him. Karen is the opposite. Sure, she's not really into fashion, but she always puts herself second and values her family and her job. You seem to not care to know about her work, but being a certified arborist is an impressive qualification. I bet she studied hard for it. Oh. As Sarah was left speechless and utterly defeated, my mother-in-law suddenly started talking about me. Unconsciously, I felt a warmth welling up in my eyes. I respect her, thinking that if she wanted to continue her work, we should support her. Have you ever seen her working lively, not caring if her clothes get dirty or her hands are covered in soil? And you make fun of her? I was teary-eyed and silent. And Sarah was unable to make any excuses or act anymore. She just hung her head low. Our tutoring school may not match the major corporations, but we value our teachers and students and have earned their trust. We've grown little by little by addressing each student's individual issues and those of their families. What's important is people and hearts. You are the one that doesn't belong here. You are the one who should leave. My mother-in-law, who had declared it so clearly, was truly awesome. After that, Sarah, who had been pretending to be a perfect, elegant wife, was forced to leave her wealthy family. My brother-in-law attempted to have a discussion, but Sarah, who refused to acknowledge her faults and was very angry, was served with divorce papers. Now that the embezzlement has been revealed, she won't be able to get any compensation, and she has nothing left. My brother-in-law will keep the custody of their son, and with the help of my father-in-law and mother-in-law, he will maintain their normal life. Sarah, who always put herself first, would take her anger out on her son when things didn't go her way. But the young boy nodded firmly at his father and grandparents' words of, "It'll be okay." The desire to send him to a private elementary school was Sarah's wish, but he apparently disliked being forced to study. These days, he's freely playing with our daughter. Of course, my husband and I intend to help in any way we can. On a leisurely day spent together at my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law approached me and said, "I'm really sorry for making you uncomfortable for so long. We should have noticed sooner." "No, not at all. I wasn't really bothered at first." "If you ever need anything in the future, don't hesitate to tell us." "Yes." As I said that, I remembered my mother-in-law's words. What's important is people and hearts. Maybe because I was staring at her, my mother-in-law looked at me with a puzzled expression. "Haha, it's nothing. I was just thinking how cool you are." "Well, thank you. But the cool one is you, being able to create such beautiful gardens. Maybe I should ask you to help with ours next time. I want to replant the flower bed." "Oh, absolutely. I would love to do it, even if it's not for work. Just let me know whenever." "You should charge her. Mom can be quite demanding." My husband chimed in with a playful comment, and we all laughed together. Value people, cherish hearts. I'll make sure to remember that. I hope to spend more time laughing with my precious family in the future.
I didn't exactly see myself footing a bill of around 40,000, you know? Just because you have money doesn't mean you should always have to spend it. Well, I'm an elite. If it bothers you so much that I spend money, you're welcome to stop. Gladly. I'll stop, and I can even take this to court if we follow the proper procedures. I'm Angela, a 56-year-old woman. I lost my husband to an illness 10 years ago. Still, I've managed to raise my 2 children thanks to my job as a lawyer. My youngest son, Frank, works as a freelance writer. He says he writes about various genres, but I don't know much about his work. However, he's independent, so I trust him. My elder son, Righteous, is a salaried worker. He's somewhat careless with money and often says, "I'm handsome, so I've never had trouble with women." It worries me that he always introduces me to his flashy girlfriends. I have a small office and live alone, leading a leisurely life. One day, I got a call from Righteous. "Hey Mom, it's been a while. How you been?" "I'm doing great. It's indeed been a long time. Are you doing well, Righteous?" "Yeah, I'm good. Can I come over for a talk soon?" "A talk? What about?" "Well, I'll be waiting for you on my day off." "Okay, I'll come over to your place then." I live alone in an apartment. It's close to my office and I find it more calming to be alone. Work keeps me busy, and sometimes I can't even keep up with housework. But knowing Righteous was visiting, I cleaned up with enthusiasm. Just when I finished cleaning and was taking a break, the doorbell rang. It was Righteous. "Come in. I just finished cleaning up. Do you keep your place tidy, Righteous?" "Yeah, Mom. I'm thinking about getting married." "Oh, congratulations. So you finally found someone you want to settle down with." "Righteous. You always go for the flamboyant girls. No offense. But I was worried. You didn't just choose her for her looks, did you? Are you sure about this?" "You thought that about me? That's harsh." Sorry. You mentioned you wanted to talk about something." "Yeah, my girlfriend is an only child, and she has always dreamed of a wedding. She wants to show her parents her bridal look, but her parents have chronic illnesses and can't work. Can you help us out with the wedding costs, Mom?" "What? Righteous. Haven't you been saving up?" "I've saved a little, but I need to think about our living expenses too, right? I'm a guy. I don't really care about the wedding ceremony that much." "Well, if that's the case, I guess it can't be helped." "Thanks, Mom. I'll make sure you get to see your grandchild. So please, spoil them, okay?" "Wait, a grandchild? Are you having a shotgun wedding?" "Sorry. Nowadays we call it a joyful wedding." "Righteous. You've got it all backward." "Anyway, we need to go and greet her parents too." "Yeah, about that. She wants to have the wedding before she starts the show, so we've already booked the venue. And for that, we need money." "How much are we talking about?" $40,000. "I'm not sure about the average costs, but okay. More importantly, let's arrange a day to meet her parents." "Okay, got it." With that, Righteous left. I'm about to become a grandmother. Some of my friends are already grandmothers, and they tell me grandchildren are truly special. That's something I'm looking forward to a little. Am I already a doting grandma? The next day, I transferred the money to the wedding venue Righteous had told me about. A shotgun wedding might not be that unusual nowadays, but I can't help but worry about how it will be viewed by society. I spent the following days worrying. I wondered whether I, as the mother of the groom, should apologize, or perhaps I should meet her parents sooner rather than later. Then one day, the phone rang. It was my younger son, Frank.
Mom, I heard Big Brother's getting married. Is that true?
Yes, dear. We've even paid the venue deposit.
Wait, the venue is already booked?
Well, it's a shotgun wedding. Or do they call it a celebration marriage now?
Call it whatever you want, but is Big Brother really ready for this?
Ready for what?
Well, he's always brought home flaky women.
I told him the same thing, but apparently her parents have chronic illnesses and are unemployed, so Righteous asked me to provide the wedding funds.
Isn't it strange that you're the only one footing the bill, even for a shotgun wedding?
I guess that's why they call it a shotgun wedding. It makes the groom's family feel guilty.
I think you're the one who feels that way these days, Mom.
Frank said, laughing. But I did feel guilty. Am I the only one who feels this way? Well, I am a woman of the old era. After all, I laughed to myself, waiting for my older son to contact me. Then, finally, the phone rang. It was Righteous. I've been waiting for your call. When are we going to meet her parents?
Sorry for the late response. She's been dealing with severe morning sickness.
Really? Is she okay? Is she unable to eat, or does she keep eating?
You surely know a lot about this, don't you, Mom?
Well, of course. After all, I've raised both of you. I couldn't eat during my first pregnancy, and during the second one, I felt anxious unless I was constantly eating.
I guess she's more of the can't eat type then.
That must be hard. Is she getting enough nutrition? There's got to be something that she can eat. When I was pregnant, all I could keep down was canned oranges and then tomatoes. Now I can't stand either because I ate too much of them.
So that's what it's like being pregnant, huh? It sounds tough.
Sure is. That's why you need to take good care of her.
Thanks, Mom. I'll get back to you once things have settled down.
I forgot to tell him about the money I had spent on the wedding, but he seemed worried about his girlfriend's health, so I decided not to bring it up. It reminded me of the times when Righteous and Frank were little, and how I struggled to raise them. When they cried as infants, their cries were so powerful that I sometimes ended up crying myself. And when they started walking, I had to constantly keep an eye on them. Thankfully, my husband was a kind man who helped look after our sons. By the time he passed away, they were in high school and required less care. I remembered how gentle he was and wished he was still here. A few days later, Frank came to visit. Ding dong. Frank, what brings you here? It's unusual for you to visit.
Well, there's something on my mind.
What is it? You seem thinner. Are you eating enough?
I'm fine, Mom. Work's just been busy. Uh, anyway, about Big Bro. Is he really getting married?
Why do you ask?
Well, last time you mentioned that because his girlfriend's been sick from morning sickness. You haven't met her parents yet, right?
So, it's the kind of morning sickness where you can't eat. It's so tough, morning sickness.
Mom, why are you so casual about this?
Huh?
I saw Big Bro with a woman who looked like his girlfriend in the middle of my job. They were holding shopping bags and seemed to be having fun. The bags were from expensive brands. She didn't look like a pregnant woman at all.
Really? What does that mean?
Mom, you said you transferred the money for the venue, right? Are they really planning to have a wedding?
I am so shocked. I don't understand what's happening.
I had forgotten to breathe.
What could it be?
What I'm saying is, didn't they say they were going to have a wedding? Have you transferred the money and then suddenly cancel, using the money to go shopping?
No way. That can't be true.
Then who did I see? Big Bro and his mistress?
Was the person Frank saw really righteous? Wasn't it someone else?
Got it. I'll look into it properly. For now, act like you didn't hear this story and don't talk about it with Big Bro.
Okay. Frank, please. As a lawyer, I deal with everything from infidelity investigations to civil and occasionally criminal cases. But I never thought I'd be deceived by my own son. I'm probably looking as if there are blue lines on my face in a cartoon. I was so shocked. It couldn't be, could it? A few days later, I finally got a call from my eldest son, Righteous.
Sorry, Mom, for being late. Are you free on my next day off?
Yes, I'm fine.
Then I want to introduce you to her parents. Could you come to XXX Hotel?
Understood. I'm looking forward to meeting them. While holding back the doubts in my heart, I managed to respond and hung up the phone. Mixed feelings of excitement about finally meeting the real girlfriend, the woman who will become my eldest son's wife, and anxiety. I am headed for the hotel we had promised to meet at, in a state of mind I had never experienced before. It was a restaurant in a city hotel with a beautiful view and a garden, and the weather was perfect. I wish I could have been in a better mood. Such a wonderful place. When I arrived, Righteous, his girlfriend, and her parents were already seated. I apologize for making you wait.
No, we arrived early, so please don't worry about it.
Nice to meet you. I'm Daisy's mother. Nice to meet you. My name is Daisy. Nice to meet you. The pleasure is mine. Nice to meet you.
Let's sit down, shall we?
She was a beautiful woman. Just Righteous's type. And she was wearing a beautiful dress. I wondered if it was okay for a pregnant woman to wear high heels, but I hesitated to say it out loud as it might sound strange. I had heard that her parents had chronic illnesses and could not work, but they were dressed very nicely. Her mother was even carrying a designer bag.
We are really happy that Daisy was chosen this time.
I heard that Righteous is working at a prestigious company, and you're a lawyer. We're truly honored to be connected to your family. I think Daisy is too good for Righteous, but thank you. We exchanged typical greetings, and the meal proceeded in a relaxed atmosphere. So, Righteous, When is the wedding? I asked.
About that. I was thinking we don't need to rush to have a wedding.
Huh? But I already transferred $40,000 to the venue.
More importantly, I found a suitable property for our new home. What do you think of this high-rise condominium?
What do you mean besides? What about the high-rise condo? Suddenly, she showed me a brochure.
We're thinking of having the wedding after we move and settle in our new home. So we need funds for the high-rise condominium, Mom.
She and her parents bowed their heads and asked, "Please, for the sake of these two, we ask for your understanding and support." A high-rise condo fund out of the blue? As I was taken aback, Frank appeared. "Frank, you're here."
Mom, it's gonna be okay.
What do you mean it's okay?
Brother, stop playing these cheap tricks.
Tricks?
What are you talking about? I did a little digging. The story about your parents being unemployed due to chronic illness? That's a lie, isn't it?
What?
They both work, don't they? Why is it that only my mom has to provide the wedding fund and transfer the money? Isn't that strange?
Wait, isn't it normal for the groom's parents to provide the wedding fund?
I've never heard of such a thing. And what's this about funds for a high-rise condo? Listen to this,
he said, placing a voice recorder on the table. Recorded on it were voices of her father and Righteous. Frank had sneaked into this hotel a step ahead and recorded their conversation.
Righteous, aren't you worried that your mother might find out that Daisy's pregnancy was a lie? No need to worry. My mother is the kind-hearted type who worries when told that Daisy has severe morning sickness. Did you also say you got a refund from the wedding venue after you suddenly canceled?
Yes, with this money, and if we can ask my mother for the down payment on the high-rise condominium, we can live together. My mother has plenty of money, so there's no need to worry.
That's a blessing indeed. Can you still say it's a lie now, brother?
This is obviously a joke, right, father-in-law? For a moment, I felt dizzy, but Frank supported me. Her pregnancy was a lie. No wonder she was wearing such high heels. They had swindled the wedding funds, and now they want money for a high-rise condominium? What on earth is happening? I was often told that I'm too kind-hearted.
Brother, how about you apologize to Mom? This is a clear case of fraud. What do you mean, fraud? You're gonna be a part of the family. It's not fraud. I don't need to hear this from a freelance writer like you. Unfortunately, while doing my writing job, I also attended school and passed the bar exam. I'm planning to help Mom in her office, so you don't have the right to talk back. When did you...
I also heard about Frank passing the exam just the other day. I was very happy and felt reassured. So I realized I mustn't get discouraged over this. I'll give up on the $40,000 I paid to the wedding venue. Consider it settlement money. We don't remember being taken care of for a mere $40,000.
What? Settlement money? Don't you want to see your grandchild?
I don't want to see a grandchild from parents who deceive me to steal money. What kind of face will the child of such parents have? I would love to know.
Even Frank is just a budding lawyer. His wedding must be a long way off, right? We can take care of you, Mom.
I've never thought for a second about burdening you two, I said. Frank is set to marry my secretary, you know. She's hardworking, observant, adorable, and a good girl.
a far cry from someone who's only after money. Unlike my brother, I'll make sure our wedding is within our means. No need to worry. And brother, you won't be invited.
Excuse me? Daisy sounded surprised. Righteous, that's not what we discussed. Your mom has money, remember? You said it would all work out. What about the high-rise condo we were supposed to live in with my parents?
I'm an elite salary man. I can manage the funds for a high-rise condo on my own. I don't need my mom to foot the bill.
Excellent. I'll gladly cut you off, and I can even take it to court if needed. I absolutely refuse to pay anything.
Righteous, let's consider this matter settled. Let's go, Daisy. With your charm, you can marry any rich man you want. On to the next one.
Next one? Even an elite has limits when he runs to his mom for help. Well, at least I got a designer bag out of it. Bye, Righteous. Daisy nonchalantly got up and left without a word. I won't be seeing you again.
Hey, wait up!
As I watched Righteous desperately chasing after her, I deeply regretted how I had raised him. Phew, what a day.
Mom, you really did well.
I feel like I've lost years of my life.
Please don't say that, Mom. I plan on being a good son from now on.
Thank you, dear. I knew I could count on Frank and his wife. I don't intend to depend on them or live with them. I sold my current apartment and built a house a bit outside the city. I plan to spend my weekdays in a rental near the office and my weekends at the house. If I worked hard now, I can spend my golden years peacefully with my grandchildren. I still have so much to teach Frank. I never thought I could rely on him this much. When his father passed away, Frank was only a high school freshman, but he decided to study hard and become a lawyer. He wanted to help me, and he did this while claiming to be a freelance writer. He used to come to my office for interviews, but it turns out he was actually visiting my secretary. Their relationship started without me noticing, and Frank decided not to marry until he passed the bar exam. When I heard his girlfriend agreed to wait, my trust in them grew. Frank proposed to her after passing the bar exam on his second try. She's not just hardworking and attentive, she's a great woman. Her family is respectable and she's lovely. Compared to her, it's clear Righteous only saw Daisy's looks. Righteous was left high and dry after Daisy and her parents got fed up with him. Daisy is good looking, but she had a terrible reputation at the company where she and Righteous were dating. She's notorious for transforming in front of rich men. And the breakup. She couldn't stay at the company and is apparently now hunting for rich men at a different company. He must be one stubborn character. I guess it doesn't matter now. Righteous was just as naive, losing his head over a woman like that. His name, given by his father, meant to live righteously. And look at where it got him. His father must be rolling in his grave. After being rejected by the unfaithful Righteous, he also resigned as rumors went around the office. Now, he's set to be job hunting. In this day and age, he can't seem to find work. Apparently, he came to the apartment where I used to live, shouting like a beggar. But a neighbor reported him and the police gave him quite the scolding. Of course, there's no way I'm telling Righteous where I live in the suburbs. He wouldn't know how to find out either. I hope he has a change of heart. He's a good kid at his core, but he was led astray by people like Daisy and her parents. No, perhaps I'm the one who failed in parenting. Parenting is hard. Well, if he does change and finds a truly good person, I'll tell him where this place is. After all, it's a place full of memories with his father and a place we often visited on family trips. But I can already picture myself spoiling my grandchildren. If I did that, Frank would surely scold me. Because Frank, he's the embodiment of sincerity.
I'm also getting married on September 10th, starting 1 p.m. Oh wait, that's the same day as your wedding, sis. My younger sister teased, her eyes narrowed in a mocking grin. Same day, even the same time. It couldn't possibly be a coincidence. Aren't you just having a small family-only ceremony, sis? You don't even have 100 people coming? Aw, that's so pitiful. We're inviting everyone, not just family, but friends and coworkers too, for a grand celebration. Do whatever you want. I swallowed the retort and instead chose different words. My name is Sarah. I'm 30 years old, a full-time worker. I met Thomas, who is 3 years older, through a friend's introduction, and we registered our marriage just recently, after 2 years of dating. Thomas works in the food industry and is a sincere and kind-hearted man. We plan to have our wedding ceremony next month, with most of the preparations already done. While many of our friends chose to hold lavish ceremonies, we decided on a small, family-only affair. The reason? I didn't want my parents and sister mingling with my friends and colleagues. Ever since we were friends, my parents had always favored my sister Melanie over me. Melanie, 3 years younger and undeniably prettier even from my objective perspective, was the apple of their eyes. With her large eyes, long eyelashes, small face, and fair skin, she was scouted by several talent agencies and even worked as a teen model during her school days. My parents doted on Melanie, often comparing her to me. Sarah, you have such a plain face. It's depressing looking at you. Sarah, you lack any charm. Melanie is as cute as an angel, unlike you. Was a common refrain. They would buy new clothes and toys for Melanie, providing her for every whim, but I was not allowed to learn any hobbies. Melanie was indulged with piano, ballet, swimming lessons, and more, but she was fickle and quickly lost interest. Despite this, our parents never admonished her. Even when Melanie failed tests due to her carefree lifestyle, they cheered her on, while scolding me harshly if I scored just average. I would often think to myself, I wish you hadn't given birth to me either. Every time they said I should have never been born. I was not allowed to retort as my parents badmouthed me and pampered Melanie. Naturally, Melanie grew up spoiled and acting like a queen. She remained beautiful, but her character was horrible. We don't look alike at all, sis. Your plain face is so pathetic. She'd mock, constantly belittling me. I didn't want to introduce my parents and sister to Thomas or his family, but my in-laws were aware of the complex relationship and didn't insist. However, my parents demanded a meeting, and reluctantly we arranged for a joint family dinner. The day arrived amid my anxiety. My family, my parents and Melanie, and Thomas's parents attended the dinner. Worried about any blunder my family might commit, I could barely taste the delicious food. Despite the gathering being for my wedding, my parents showed no interest in Thomas. Even when we talked about how we met or our future life, they dismissed it with a mere, In contrast, they praised Melanie excessively when introducing her. Even when my in-laws tried to shift the conversation to me, my parents would deflect, saying, "Forget about her, let's talk about Melanie." Melanie chimed in, saying, "Mom, Dad, you two praising me too much." Well, there's nothing interesting to talk about, sis, anyway. As expected, but still distressing to see, my bizarre family dynamic played out in front of Thomas and my in-laws, causing their faces to stiffen. My family, having had their fill of food and talk of Melanie, left without even a congratulatory word for our wedding. I was stunned that they hadn't even congratulated me on my wedding, when Thomas gently put his arm around me. I heard some of it, but I never thought they would be this terrible. You've had it tough, Sarah. My in-laws then expressed their heartfelt gratitude. Sarah, we know you've been through a lot. We're so happy that you're a part of our family now. Please feel free to lean on us like real parents from now on. Their words warmed my heart. I thanked them and finally voiced something that had been on my mind for a while. I'm thinking about having a small, intimate wedding because my parents and sister are, well, as you've seen, unpredictable. I'm a bit concerned about what might happen if we invite acquaintances or friends. Would it be okay if we keep it just to close family? I asked my in-laws. Thomas had already agreed to this. My in-laws responded affirmatively. Of course. I let out a sigh of relief. So it was decided that we would have a small family-only wedding. However, as our wedding approached, I was hit with a shocking report. Unexpectedly, I received a call from my parents. Melanie is getting married. Her fiancé is at her house right now. You must come over. On arrival, I saw my parents, Melanie, and her fiancé. The man's face was familiar. Nice to see you, Sarah. I was surprised to find out you are Melanie's sister, he said. I'm surprised too, I replied. His name was Ethan Matthews. He worked for one of my company's business partners. When Melanie mentioned your name, I assumed you must be a different Sarah. I never thought you two could be sisters. You don't look alike at all, he sneered. This man had always looked down on me at work. Apparently, it was because I didn't have a college degree. My parents told me, you should work, not go to college. Unable to attend college, I joined the current company right after high school. Matthews, it seems, graduated from a prestigious university, and he tends to judge people based on their education. The idea of becoming family with such a man was daunting. I wanted to leave the room as quickly as possible. Congratulations on your wedding. I'll be taking my leave now, I said. But then Melanie stunned me with an unexpected statement. We've decided to have our wedding on the same day, at the same venue as you guys, she blurted out. Ethan joined in. Our wedding is going to be grand compared to yours, he said, smirking. I was too shocked to respond to their outrageous proposal. Our wedding venue was a large place capable of hosting several weddings on the same day. Despite my initial preference for a smaller venue due to the intimate guest list, Thomas and my in-laws insisted on this grand venue, since it was our big day. Indeed, if Melanie and Ethan were planning a grand ceremony with lots of guests, this would be the ideal venue. However, deliberately scheduling their wedding at the same time and day could only be seen as an act of spite. Melanie and Ethan laughed derisively. Look at her! She's frozen in shock! Are you okay? They mocked. I tried to remain calm and retorted. What do you mean by that? What about our parents and relatives? Which wedding are they supposed to attend? Melanie was unfazed. Don't worry. Dad, Mom, and all our relatives are attending mine and Ethan's wedding, she replied, looking triumphant. Our parents even started calling our relatives right then and there, requesting them to attend Melanie's ceremony. The relatives, whom I had met several times, always favored Melanie. They either didn't want to stir up trouble, or perhaps they thought I was a liar. Even when I explained that it was Melanie who had announced her wedding date after ours, they didn't believe me and labeled me as immature for trying to have the ceremony on the same day as my sisters. Looking at my smiling parents, Melanie, and Ethan, I let out a sigh and left the house, saying, ugh, okay, then fine. No one even came to see me out. I could hear their vulgar laughter echoing as I closed the door. Back home, I apologized to Thomas and my in-laws about not being able to invite anyone from my side to our intimate wedding, despite being the one to suggest it in the first place. However, they didn't mind and even suggested that with fewer guests, we could have a more lavish ceremony. I was truly grateful. Then came the wedding day. As the relatives were walking through the lobby to attend Melanie's reception, I crossed paths with them. Sarah is such a nasty woman. Compared to Melanie, Sarah is so plain, they whispered and passed by. I brushed off their comments and determined to make the day the best wedding ever. Our ceremony was going great. Thomas's talented relatives entertained us with various performances, creating a truly happy atmosphere. Suddenly, amidst the celebration, we heard a voice shouting, "What is this?" Melanie, Ethan, my parents, and Ethan's parents all stormed into our wedding. "Melanie, what's going on?" I asked her out of the blue. She burst out, "Everyone from Ethan's office is absent today. You must have done something." In reality, the reception hall for Melanie and Ethan's wedding was devoid of attendees from Ethan's workplace, leaving many empty seats. This caused my parents to angrily confront Ethan's parents with, "What a disgrace this is." Ethan's parents were furious, having been berated for something they knew nothing about, which set a bad mood. Melanie, in a panic, falsely told Ethan's parents that she and I had arranged our weddings to overlap on purpose, as we were not on good terms. Thus, she stormed into my wedding ceremony, suspecting I must have done something. "My wedding was a disaster, and yet Sarah's wedding is full of happiness. It's infuriating," Melanie spat out. "Melanie, calm down." I tried to reason with her. However, Melanie attempted to ruin the ceremony by shouting, "Attention, everyone! My sister Sarah is the worst person in the world. She has bullied me since I was a child." I tried to stop her. "Melanie, stop this!" But her tirade didn't halt. "I'm much more beautiful in a wedding dress than she is. She's always been envious of my beauty, and she's just a gloomy, depressing woman." Melanie continued with her baseless accusations. Ethan joined in, agreeing with her. "Exactly. Sarah is a high school graduate and totally useless." He went on. "That's why you shouldn't hire high school graduates. I, on the other hand, graduated from a top-notch university, and I'm super talented. I'm even buddies with the CEO, so promotion is a certainty." He still went on telling how he is great. However, when Ethan noticed my father-in-law seated at the groom's family table, his face turned pale. He had been boasting about himself and disparaging me, but now he was shaking in fear. "Why is the CEO here?" he mumbled in shock. "Matthews, I'm disappointed in you," my father-in-law said with anger in his voice. Why is the CEO here?" Ethan asked in a panic, to which my father-in-law replied, "I am the father of the groom, Sarah's father-in-law." Ethan stood there, mouth agape in surprise. Indeed, my father-in-law was the CEO of Ethan's company. "The reception venue for your wedding was next to ours, and before our ceremony started, I ran into your guests. I heard everything, how you intentionally overlapped our son's wedding, date, and time to it." The CEO voiced his anger. Ethan's invited guests had been terrified by the CEO's fury upon learning the truth, so they had fled. "No, it's not what you think, sir. I had no idea. It was all Melanie's doing." Ethan desperately tried to explain. Melanie, however, looked at him in disbelief. "There's no way I would ruin Sarah's wedding. She's an important client's employee. What I said earlier was just a joke. I didn't mean it." Ethan continued with his flimsy defense, only to be cut off by my father-in-law's command. "Stop lying. I spoke with your colleague earlier. I heard about the derogatory remarks you've been making about Sarah." He informed Ethan, who searched for an excuse, but seeming to realize he was caught, hung his head. "Sarah is an exceptional woman. She couldn't go to college due to her family's circumstances, but started working right after high school and has been striving every day since. She's been living a straight and honest life, despite her tough home situation. She would never judge or belittle someone based on their education, like you do. She's a very kind and wise woman." My father-in-law praised me, making me tear up. Sir, I deeply apologize for..." Ethan started to say, only for my father-in-law to cut him off. "You're apologizing to the wrong person. Apologize to Sarah. And don't you dare interfere with my son and his wife again. Understood?" Yes, sir." Ethan was shaking like a leaf. Turning to me, he tearfully apologized. I'm really sorry." "As I've had enough, please, just leave," I said. Melanie erupted. "What is this turn of events? Why is this happening? Ethan yelled at Melanie. Shut up! I regret ever marrying you. What did you just say? Melanie turned red with anger. The two were squabbling and having a huge fight when shortly the venue staff came over and ushered Ethan and Melanie out. Their parents and in-laws, who had been watching in disbelief, also quickly left the venue. We, who were left behind, blew away the stunned atmosphere and resumed the joyous reception, which turned out to be quite a blast. I thanked my father-in-law, saying, Father, I was truly happy about what you said earlier. Thank you. My father-in-law smiled warmly and said, I apologize for my subordinate's behavior. And again, thank you, Sarah, for marrying my son. Please, let me know if you're ever in trouble. Later, Ethan was apparently nervous about being disciplined for this incident, but since it wasn't a work-related incident, there were no demotions. However, Ethan, who had been acting submissive in front of my father-in-law because he wanted to advance his career, ruined everything when his true nature was exposed. He was no longer able to speak to my father-in-law about anything other than work, and he was demoted to being just another employee. Ethan, who had been pressuring his colleagues by bragging about being the boss's favorite, was isolated due to his true nature, and even his coworkers and subordinates avoided eye contact with him. At the end of the day, Ethan was probably just another employee for my father-in-law, considering that he didn't even know who his son was going to marry. The entire company learned about Ethan's misdeeds, and Ethan's comfort in the office diminished. He even started blaming Melanie for everything and became violent towards her. Ethan was sued by Melanie for domestic violence, and Melanie was sued by Ethan's parents for ruining the wedding. It was a messy divorce drama. Melanie, who was crying about Ethan being violent, and her parents sued Ethan. Ethan and his parents, on the other hand, claimed that Melanie and her parents had interfered with Ethan's work and ruined the wedding. Both parties are reportedly hiring lawyers and preparing to sue, but they are struggling because they each only want to hear what they want to hear and are ignoring any inconvenient truths. As the mudslinging continued, Melanie ran out of money due to wedding expenses and lawyer fees, and her life became difficult. After the divorce was finalized, she had to move back in with her parents, who had treated her like a princess until then, but now treated her terribly, calling her the shame of their family. Although I didn't want to know, Melanie frequently called or emailed me to explain how tough her situation was. Even if I completely ignored her, I was still accumulating hundreds of missed calls and unread emails. My sister's abusive calls and her begging emails for money were all blocked without response. And then I started getting calls and emails from my parents. They were all begging for money, and they weren't worth reading. Whether they had spent too much money trying to show off at my sister's wedding, or they thought I would agree with them if they asked nicely, I don't know. But the volume was increasing, and it was becoming a nuisance, so I blocked them as well. I was prepared for them to come to my house, but they didn't even have the money for transportation to come here. Ethan's parents, who should be practically strangers to me, for some reason were begging me to mediate with my father-in-law. Recently, they even tried to follow me home, so I reported them without hesitation. They ran away every time the police came, but they have been increasing their stakeouts recently. Thanks to the increased number of reports, the police have strengthened their patrols, so things have been peaceful for now. I am building a warm home with my kind mother-in-law and father-in-law, thinking that they are my real parents, not my biological ones. I feel the calmness of a real family, which I had only heard of in rumors. There's no such thing as daughter-in-law bullying here, and I'm feeling the reality that family can be such a warm thing. Hey, what's wrong, Jake? Mom, I might be done for. Our son Jake was hanging his head at the entrance as soon as he got home. My husband and I were shocked by the scene. We decided to take him to the living room and ask what was going on. He seemed to come alone today. I wondered where his wife Laura was. But the reason Laura was absent became clear when we heard his story. After a while, Jake regained his composure. My husband and I waited for Jake to speak. Sorry for coming home so suddenly. I just can't take it anymore. What happened? And Jake, have you lost some weight? Yeah. He was always thin, but now he looked sickly thin. It wasn't normal. Then Jake revealed the reason behind it. Actually, it's because of Laura. Laura? What happened? Right now, she's taking most of my salary. What? Most of your salary? Is Laura handling the finances? Yeah, you know I've always been bad with money, right? So I thought it would be better if Laura managed it. But recently, the money she's been giving me has been decreasing, and I can't afford lunch. Then she said she's been saving money because the electricity bill was high this month, and that she had to use the money to repair the vacuum cleaner. I couldn't stand it anymore and complained, but she said it's my fault for not earning enough. I see. Jake, you're pathetic. So you're saying you've been doing whatever Laura tells you? If you're the man of the house, you need to take control. If not, the situation might get worse. I know. What my husband said was true. If you just follow your wife's orders, it can lead to misery. Although it might be harsh for Jake, who's mentally weak right now, he has to understand it. Jake seemed to understand as he was silently nodding. Then Jake told us something else. Remember you said I looked thinner? It might be because I've been surviving on instant noodles for all 3 meals. You can't eat only instant noodles. No matter how convenient it is, you need to get proper nutrition. But all I'm given is instant noodles. It seems like Jake has been given only a small amount of money for the last month, and has been provided only with instant noodles for lunch. Ever since Laura suggested they needed to save money, Jake has been putting up with it. Of course, he tried to object, but the fact is that he was the one who asked Laura to manage the finances. It might be difficult for him to complain, given those circumstances. But, considering the situation, he can't dwell on that right now. Anyway, you're staying with us tonight. I'll give you a proper meal and even pack a lunch for work tomorrow. Thank you, Mom. With a sigh of relief, Jake, with tears streaming down his face, thanked me. Apparently, he told Laura he'd be staying at his parents' home for a while. In hindsight, it would have been better if he had confronted her about the difficulties of their current living situation. But given Jake's mental state, that was all he could say to her. It was my first time seeing Jake so broken down. I can't even begin to imagine the amount of stress he must have been under. After that, he ended up staying at home for a while, and due to his poor health, he had to take a leave of absence from work. When Jake took this leave, I learned that he had recently been going to the hospital. He said it was due to stress, so the hospital had advised him to take some time off. However, Jake had a fear of what she might do to him if he took a break from work, so he had continued working out of habit, which resulted in his current state. During Jake's leave of absence, he was living on disability. At least being at home meant he could save on meals, which he said would be a big help. But what's more important is that we still need to do something about Laura. However, there is something I'm worried about. If I get involved, it could potentially make things worse. Maybe they can resolve it by themselves. For a moment, the thought crossed my mind that it might not be good for me to intervene. But I quickly dismissed such thoughts. Jake was desperate enough to come to me in such a state, and it's not a situation where I could afford to hesitate. I should do what I can for Jake. Just then, I received a call from Laura. Hello, Laura? It's been a while, hasn't it, Isabella? Jake's there with you, isn't he? Could you tell him to come home? I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Why not? Jake is trying to abandon his duties as a husband, you know? Are you really okay with that? I don't think it's a matter of me being okay with it or not. If I just send him back, I don't think it will solve anything fundamentally. How about we set up a meeting to talk about this in the near future? And not just with me, but with your parents as well, so we could all sit down and discuss this. Oh, is that so? I see. So, you're not planning on sending Jake back, are you? Understood. I have some ideas too then. We'll talk again soon. With that, Laura hung up the phone. She has some ideas. That phrase stuck with me. What could Laura possibly be planning? Several anxiety-filled days passed. Then, one weekend, my husband Jake and I were relaxing when the doorbell rang. I thought it was the mail or something and checked the intercom monitor. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were Laura and her parents. What should I do? Luckily, Jake hasn't noticed yet. Maybe I can dodge the situation and pretend we're not home. That's what I was thinking. But then I heard, "What's wrong, Jake?" My husband called Jake, and when I looked over, Jake was shaking with his phone in his hand. I then looked at the phone Jake was holding, and there the screen displayed Laura with an incoming call. Jake seemed to be having a reflex of rejection. He couldn't answer the phone. So with Jake's permission, I answered the call. "Hello?" "Oh? Why are you answering the phone?" "Jake is not feeling well today, so I picked up the phone for him." "I see. In that case, I'm worried. So please, let us visit while we have our discussion. We're outside your house right now." I'm sorry. We're actually out at the moment." "That's strange. If Jake's phone is there, but you're not home, how does that work?" I'm not used to lying, and my lie was easily exposed. "Isabella, there's no need to be so cautious. My parents and I are here to have a discussion with you." As she spoke, my husband moved towards the door. "It won't help running away from this situation. Might as well settle it now," my curt husband said, opening the front door and welcoming Laura and her parents into our house. Their faces as they entered lacked any hint of a smile. In fact, it seemed as if they were glaring at us. "We apologize for the sudden visit. We just heard something from our daughter and thought we should join the conversation." It was probably about something I'd said to Laura the other day. I had suggested we should have a discussion involving both our sets of parents. I hadn't expected them to come unannounced, though. In the tense atmosphere, the discussion began. We explained that Jake had asked Laura to manage their money, but due to her excessive frugality, he had suffered health issues and had not been provided with adequate meals. We also told them that he was currently under medical treatment. However, it seemed that Laura and her parents were convinced by this fact. "That's all about Jake's situation. Is there anything you'd like to say?" Laura's mother chimed in. "But wasn't Jake the one who asked Laura to manage the money? Doesn't he bear some responsibility then?" "Of course, you're right. If Jake had managed it himself, we wouldn't have this issue. But don't you think surviving on instant noodles for all meals is a bit much?" "That's none of our business. Maybe it couldn't be helped in order to save money." "Is that true, Laura?" "Yes, it is. I never waste money, but Jake often buys a lot of unnecessary things." "What? I didn't buy anything. Stop lying, Jake." She laughed. "What? So it was a lie. Just like he tried to pretend he wasn't home today. Like father, like son, I guess." "What?" Before we knew it, instead of a discussion, it had turned into a situation where Jake and I were being cornered. Every time Jake and I tried to argue, Laura and her parents would shut us down with another point. It seemed our opinions were not being heard, only their one-sided claims continued. Just then, my usually quiet husband, who had been silent until now, slammed the table. At the sound and his sudden action, everyone jumped in surprise. "Can I say something?" "Laura, are you and your parents trying to say that it's all Jake's fault?" "I'm not saying that. I just think that if they are a couple, then they should lay everything out on the table and have a good, honest discussion. Then they might be able to get along again." "Lay everything out. I see. I understand. You might be right." "What?" "I'll talk to Jake again here. So, would you be willing to set up another discussion on a different day? I think everything will be clear by then." "It seems you're a reasonable man, sir. All right. I apologize for my previous rudeness. How about 2 weeks from today for the next meeting? I don't think it's good to leave it too long." "Sounds good. That will be sufficient." And so it was decided that the meeting would take place at a later date, as my husband had suggested. After the three of them had left, I turned on my husband furiously. Why would you say such a thing? It's as if you're admitting that Jake is in the wrong. Calm down. I didn't think Jake was at fault, nor did I particularly want to smooth things over. Then why? Don't you find it strange? Why go to such lengths to make up with Jake? Huh? She brought her parents with their complaints, all with the aim of reconciliation. In a situation like this, I wouldn't even consider reconciliation. He had a point. If they cared about their daughter, they would either discuss divorce or approach the situation more calmly. Perhaps there was another objective. As I pieced together the situation, I realized one thing. What makes Jake so essential to Laura and her parents? The first thing that came to mind was money. From what Jake had shared, he had a pretty decent salary. However, he couldn't go against Laura, so he wasn't able to get allowances or such. In that case, Laura and her parents might be depending on Jake's money. But recently, he had switched to disability benefits and had a separate account for his salary. If that's the case, they must be in trouble. Perhaps they made contact because they wanted Jake to come home quickly and secure his salary. After discussing with my husband, we reached that conclusion and immediately told Jake. Jake, if this continues, you'll be drained by that family. I think it's better to make a decision before that happens. I'm sorry, but this is something only you can decide. So think it over carefully. I understand. It was a hard decision, but Jake also had to move forward. Making decisions for oneself is crucial. About a week later, Jake came to a conclusion. Mom, Dad, I'm getting a divorce. My husband and I embraced Jake, honoring his decision and the courage it took. It wasn't an easy thing to do. He must have thought about various things. Whether this is the right decision or not, we don't know, but we will understand as we continue to live. At least, I thought it was a good decision. Then, we started helping Jake prepare for the divorce. We had to push the meeting back a little because it didn't seem like we would make it in 2 weeks. So, we told Laura's family. They made some snide remarks, but knowing that this relationship would soon be over made it bearable. Once everything was ready, we sat and waited for their call. Then, Laura and her father came to our house right away. What's this all about? I didn't hear anything about a divorce mediation. So, this is why you wanted to postpone the meeting. What a joke. Let me tell you, I'm not attending any of this mediation. My daughter will never get a divorce. Laura and her father were furious. It was a natural reaction since they thought there would be no divorce. But the wheels were already in motion. There was no stopping it now. Please, calm down, both of you. Our decision to divorce will not change. Please, leave now. You! Could you please stop? Besides, didn't you say you were going to lay everything out in the open? You're hiding something from us, aren't you? Like how you're taking Jake's money through your daughter. What are you talking about? Stop the poor excuses. We have all the information. It was a bit costly, but we had a detective investigate you. You quit your job last year, didn't you? You're living a pretty comfortable life, aren't you? Taking it easy with a job and living on Jake's money. You have your retirement savings, and there's no problem as long as you keep leeching off Jake. I'm sorry. Then my husband lost his temper. What good does apologizing do now? You've been using the money Jake earned through hard work for your leisure. There's no way I'd ever accept your apology. Laura, you too. If you wanted to help your father after he quit his job, why didn't you use your own money? Using someone else's money for that. Are you some kind of fraudster? Just get out. I don't want to breathe the same air as you for even a moment. Just get lost! With my husband's roar, Laura and her father quickly left. At that moment, it became clear that my husband was the angriest about this whole matter. And so, this incident came to a close. In the mediation that followed, we hired a lawyer and successfully got the divorce. Although not for the full amount, some repayment obligation was established, and Laura's family was ordered to pay. After the divorce was finalized, Laura and her father immediately started looking for full-time jobs. Due to his age, it seems like he is having a hard time finding work. Laura is balancing a day job and a night job, literally working without a break. Since then, Jake's condition has improved and he's returned to work. I was torn about how much I should help this time, but I now think it was good that I did. I want my child to be healthy after all. I don't know what the future holds, but I want Jake to know that he always has two allies.
My husband constantly invites friends over every week and pushes me around even though I'm pregnant. His friends also act as if this is the norm. One day, my husband Nick handed me a sleeping bag and said, "You can sleep here." And I was ousted to the kitchen. I can't take it anymore. If you want to have a good time with your friends, I have my own ideas too. By the time they realize who's arrived, they'll be in for a shock. My name is Emma. My husband Nick is a former colleague from my company. We met at a toy company aimed at young children. He was always surrounded by friends, a sociable person with a wide circle of acquaintances. Being introverted, I admired Nick's sociability. So when he asked me out, I was pleasantly surprised despite not expecting it. Once I started dating Nick, I realized that despite seeming flamboyant, he was actually frugal and responsible. Surprisingly, we spent many of our dates at home relaxing. "Nick, you're always hanging out with various people, aren't you? I thought you'd prefer to go out more for dates." When I mentioned this, he responded with slight awkwardness. "So you saw me like that? Actually, I don't really like to waste money. I usually just go along with eating out or drinking with others, but I really prefer relaxing at home." "I see. I myself prefer staying home, watching movies or cooking together, rather than going out." I was happy to see this unexpected side of him, a side he only showed to me. Gradually, I began to see him as a potential husband. He seemed to feel the same way, and a year into our relationship, Nick proposed to me. Even after getting married, Nick remained popular, often being invited to social gatherings by his colleagues. However, I was growing wary of him going out drinking every week. "Hey, I'd like to spend some weekends with you too." As I expressed my feelings, he responded while scratching his head. "Yeah, you're right. My bad. From now on, I'll just drink at home. That way, you won't be lonely, right? I want you to get along with my friends too." That's not exactly what I meant. Still, I couldn't say no to Nick. Since then, his friends and colleagues began to visit our home every weekend to drink. "Hey, Nick's wife, more beer, please." "Emma, we're out of snacks." Among his friends, there was a female contract worker named Sandy who didn't show any signs of helping out. I was run ragged by preparing drinks and snacks, never resting even over the weekend. Nick was completely oblivious to my state. "Guys, don't worry about catching the last train home tonight. Let's party till dawn." "Oh, that's what we were waiting for. You're the best, Nick." Not worrying about the last train? Could it be? As I thought, they partied late into the night and ended up staying over. And when they woke up late in the morning, they would demand as if it was a given. "Got anything to eat? Something easy on a hangover would be good," he said. So my weekend ended without any rest. But if I complained about the situation, Nick would surely just go out to drink. When I was wondering what to do, I found out I was pregnant. When I announced my pregnancy, Nick was overjoyed. "Really? That's great. So, I'm finally going to be a dad. That's right. I have to report this to everyone right away." Without giving me a chance to stop him, Nick messaged them. "Emma, everyone is happy for us and they want to celebrate. They're coming over this weekend." True to his words, his friends flocked to our house over the weekend and started partying harder than ever. They're here to celebrate, so I guess it can't be helped. Initially, I thought so and accepted it, but I was completely tired of them who kept showing up week after week. Hey Nick, I'm happy they want to celebrate, but I'm having morning sickness and it's hard, so I want you to stop inviting people over. When I complained to Nick, he responded with dissatisfaction.
What are you talking about? Wasn't it you, Emma, who said, I'm lonely, I want to drink at home?
I told you not to go out drinking. I never said I wanted you to drink at home.
But I can't just leave you alone at home and go out drinking while you're pregnant. What if something happens while I'm gone?
Could it be that he's worried about me and drinking at home for my sake? When I thought about that, I found it hard to be too forceful. But every week is a bit too much.
All right. But right now, everyone is just trying to celebrate our baby. We can't just ignore their feelings, right?
Having been told that, I had no choice but to concede. I understand, but I'm having morning sickness, so I don't think I can prepare much food or snacks. I don't want to carry heavy stuff either, so will you handle the drinks, Nick?
Of course. Just do what you can, Emma.
Relieved by his words, I got through another weekend. Today again, their friends came to their house like they're used to.
Hey ma'am, I brought beer. I'll put it here. Please keep it cool.
Okay.
And also, these are ingredients for food. You don't have to cook anything fancy.
It seemed Nick had told them something as the friends started bringing drinks and food one after another. But they only brought things. The actual task of fetching drinks from the refrigerator or making snacks was still left to me.
Hey, Nick's wife, can you bring us the beer from the fridge?
Emma, we need more snacks, please. In the end, I had to do the cooking. I knew that talking to Nick would be pointless. So I gently told them, actually, I've been having really bad morning sickness lately, and that's why I've taken a leave of absence from work, so... I was about to say that I wanted them to refrain from coming to our house in the future. But, laughing, the friends responded to my words. Exactly! I heard about it at work. Emma, you're on leave, right? Then you have to work for Nick at least on weekends.
Right, pregnancy isn't a sickness, so it's better if you move around a bit.
Misunderstanding something, my feelings didn't get through at all, and the friends started to take advantage of me even more. I had thought they wouldn't stay the night, but deep into the night, Nick and his colleagues didn't slow down their drinking. As I expected, they continued to drink past the subway time, got completely drunk, and were no longer in a state to return home. I was too tired to get angry anymore. When I tried to talk to Nick and then retired to the bedroom, Sandy, a contract employee, was already sleeping in our bed. I urgently appealed to him. Nick, Sandy's sleeping in our bed.
Oh, she got pretty wasted, so I carried her to the bed.
I can't believe it. I want to rest too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just wait a bit.
I thought he was going to wake Sandy up and get her off the bed, but instead Nick came back with a sleeping bag.
You should sleep here for tonight.
Saying that, Nick started setting up the sleeping bag in the corner of the kitchen. Whoa, wait a second. You're telling me I'm sleeping here? And in a sleeping bag?
Well, we're still drinking in the living room, so this is the only place, right? I'm glad I bought this camping sleeping bag, haha.
Called by his friends, Nick returned to the living room with more drinks in his hands. With no choice, I spent the night in an uncomfortable sleeping bag. The next morning, I was awakened by a knock from Sandy. Hey, Emma, how long are you going to sleep? It's already 11 a.m., you know. Sorry, I had trouble falling asleep last night. After a night in an unfamiliar sleeping bag and on the hard kitchen floor, I managed to fall asleep only when dawn broke. I only managed to doze off, and I'm not feeling refreshed at all. Regardless, Sandy continued. Hey, I'm hungry. Don't we have anything for breakfast? Oh, thanks to someone's oversleeping, it's more like brunch now, haha. Wake me up when it's ready, okay? She said, and then went back to our bedroom. With a fuzzy head, I went to the living room where Nick and his friends were passed out drunk. The table was littered with the remnants of their food and drinks. It seems I'm the one who'll have to clean up this mess. As I was making a soup grudgingly, the smell attracted Nick and his friends.
Oh, soup, huh? Nice.
Sandy also came to the living room and started stuffing herself with rice, soup, and omelet. His friends too seemed to have become quite cheerful.
Yesterday was so fun, man. I don't feel like going home today either.
I get that. It's a long weekend after all. Let's have a second celebration. Instead of refusing, Nick said,
Thanks for doing this for us.
He even expressed his gratitude. It looks like it's up to me to be the one to say no. Well, everyone, I've understood your feelings well enough, so it's not necessary for you to celebrate so many times. The room fell silent for a moment at my stern words. Sensing this, Nick quickly addressed everyone.
That's right, let's invite others today. They said they were busy and couldn't come yesterday, right?
At his words, the friends quickly got their spirits back.
Nick, that's a brilliant idea.
They were also wanting to celebrate again. Noticing my dissatisfaction, Nick addressed me sternly.
Emma, what's with that attitude since a while ago? It's rude to everyone, isn't it? I thought you'd be anxious being alone as a pregnant woman, so I'm holding back from going out drinking. They're all caring for me who can't go out drinking, and have taken the trouble to come to our house, you know?
The friends also agreed with Nick's opinion. Holding back from drinking for the sake of his wife, Nick really cares about his wife, but it will suffocate if you keep holding back too much. We have to take a breather like this about once a week. We're always ready to accompany you. That's right. There are not many good husbands like Nick. We'll come every week if necessary.
Thanks for covering for my wife's selfishness, everyone.
Encouraged by everyone, Nick didn't seem entirely displeased. Everyone's covering for my selfishness? Is this kind of drinking party going to continue every week from now on? That's ridiculous. Finally, I snapped at Nick's words. Got it. Then can I invite someone too? As I said that, Nick nodded in relief.
Yeah, you can invite whoever you want. It's more fun when there are many people.
Hearing that, I immediately made a phone call to a certain place. In the afternoon, another friend of Nick's arrived.
I didn't think everyone was drinking 2 days in a row. Thanks for the invite, Nick. Likewise, thank you for celebrating for us. Let's drink to our heart's content today.
Then the doorbell rang again.
Oh, looks like the person Emma invited is here too. Should I get the door?
Opening the front door, Nick was taken aback.
But boss, why are you here?
I hurriedly headed to the entrance to welcome the visitor. Uncle, I've been waiting for you.
Uncle?
Indeed, the man I called to our home on the phone was the head of our department at the company. To the surprise Nick and his friends, I explained the situation. This man is an old friend of my father. He has loved me as his own daughter since the day I was born.
But Emma, you never mentioned this before.
Nick interjected, sweating nervously.
He didn't show any signs of this at the wedding or at the company, even as head of the department.
Well, if the other employees heard that the boss was doting on me, they would find it hard to work, wouldn't they? At my words, the boss added,
I have also been sternly told by Emma not to be overly familiar in public. I've never been able to outsmart her. As a man without children of my own, Emma is like a precious daughter to me.
The boss, suddenly serious, turned to Nick and said this.
This precious Emma has come to me for help when she's in trouble. That's why I came here. What seems to be the issue? What? We haven't done anything to trouble Emma, right guys?
As Nick said this, everyone else hastily nodded in agreement. Immediately I addressed them. Right, making a pregnant woman like me prepare late-night snacks and breakfast, making me sleep in a sleeping bag. You don't think anything of it, do you, Nick? Upon hearing my words, the boss was furious.
Nick, are you treating Emma this way? It's just that everyone said they wanted to celebrate our pregnancy, so I couldn't refuse.
Suddenly being blamed, the friends hastily started to explain.
No, sir. We only accepted Nick's request because he said he couldn't go out drinking due to his wife.
Then the boss put an end to the disgraceful attempt to evade responsibility.
Shut up! It's outrageous to have a drinking party overnight in a house with a pregnant woman and let her sleep in the kitchen. Do you think that's appropriate for our company, a toy manufacturer targeting young children? We're very sorry. We'll excuse ourselves now.
The friends, startled by the boss's anger, quickly gathered their things and hurried to leave. Seeing their reactions, the boss shouted again.
Hey, are you going to make Emma clean up? Clean up the mess you've made for yourselves before you leave.
Being glared at by the boss, they started cleaning up the cluttered living room and doing the dishes. When the house was all tidied up, they left as if they were fleeing. Amidst all that, the boss called a halt to Sandy.
Sandy, I want you to stay behind for a bit.
Me? After her friends left, the boss questioned a visibly uncomfortable Nick and Sandy.
Do you know why I asked Sandy to stay?
Nick, though flustered, denied it.
No. What are you talking about? It's about the rumors between you, Nick, and Sandy. There's been talk within the company that you two have been having an affair. That's a misunderstanding.
With Nick desperately denying it, the boss lowered his tone.
I had heard about Emma being pregnant and thought the rumors were baseless. I wanted that shouldn't be the case, but you disappointed me.
The boss showed an email image sent by someone from the company. It contained images of Nick and Sandy entering a fancy restaurant and coming out of a brand store carrying shopping bags. It turns out Nick was not thrifty, he was just stingy with me. In fact, I had suspicions about his relationship with Sandy and mentioned my concerns to the boss. Upon hearing this, the boss immediately contacted several employees who had witnessed the two and provided photographs as evidence.
No, boss, this is,
Exactly, there's nothing between Nick and me. Even when confronted with evidence, their pathetic excuses disgusted me. I hesitated at the thought of our baby growing up without a father, but if the father is someone who can casually invite his affair partner into our home, it's better if he isn't around. I told Nick on the spot that I wanted a divorce. I've had enough of your selfish excuses. Nick and I are getting a divorce. You two can do whatever you want.
What about our baby in your belly?
You who let our child sleep in a sleeping bag on the kitchen floor, worried about our child? What are you saying now?
But...
There's no but. You who cheated don't get a say. My conditions are asset division and child support.
How much is it going to be?
Who knows? You've done enough to deserve it, haven't you?
Emma, reconsider.
Shut up. I'm done being patient. Go have your parties with your friends for the rest of your life, you man-child. After that, the house became mine through property division. I made him agree to pay child support as well. The boss was present for all the discussion, so Nick reluctantly agreed to my terms. After the divorce, Nick left the house and moved in with Sandy. Rumors of them living together quickly spread within the company, and their affair became public knowledge. Because their bad reputation also negatively affected the clients, it seems Sandy was fired and Nick was demoted. As the reason for the contract termination reached the temp agency, Sandy was unable to find a new placement. Nick also suffered a major salary cut due to his demotion. Sandy, now jobless, and Nick, who's stretched thin by monthly child support payments, they have no wiggle room in their lives and are now forced to live a very frugal life. They are always fighting about money, and though they both want to break up, they are forced to stick together because neither of them has the funds to live alone. On the other hand, with the support of my family and the boss, I was able to give birth safely. Afterwards, the boss introduced me to a man, leading to a remarriage. As I created a new family, I've never been happier.